Coming up next, UT Austin leftists will dox students who join conservative groups. U.S. Library Group sneaks in LGBTQ books and activities for little kids. Drag shows taking over the libraries, and moms being kicked out. Schools punish teen for saying there are only two genders. All this coming up next on The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Every week, Katie and I cover those stories impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Greetings to all of our listeners. And if you haven't done so, please consider subscribing to the podcast. It's a big help. Get those podcast numbers up. Do it on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else you can get podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Parler. Parler. You let me have my say. Parler. With you I will stay. It's a new social media platform built around free speech to compete with the censors at Twitter. So get on board there and follow us. Freedom Project, Dr. Duke Pesta, Katie Petrick. Follow us all on Parler. Later in the show, we're going to get educated about Katie's favorite president, Mr. John Adams, taken from our award-winning Presidential Minute series. More animation for you, so stick around for that as well. And Katie wants to tell you about a fun Q&A question show that we have coming up.
Yes, I do. We have office hours coming up. So since this show first launched, we've seen so many people post questions for us on all the various platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Parler. And what we're going to do is host a special episode, and we're going to call it Office Hours, because obviously, as a professor, Mr. Dr. Duke Pesta has his office hours. And we're going to devote an entire show to answering your deep, burning questions for education, but it can also be for your favorite books. Duke stays as a bouncer. Yes, you heard it correctly. Dr. Duke stays as a bouncer, and basically anything else you can ask us. So visit freedomproject.com/askduke to submit your questions. We want all the questions submitted by Sunday, July 7th, okay? You have till Sunday, July 7th to get your questions in. So go to freedomproject.com/askduke and ask us anything for our special Q&A episode airing July 11th.
And I guarantee you, if you stop by my office hours, I won't be like a lot of professors sitting there in a kind of half-open bathrobe with a creepy lava lamp and a glass of Chianti for all the females. I promise if you come by office hours to talk to me, we'll do it professionally, Katie.
So the robe will at least be closed.
I will have cinched the robe, and I will have not shaved my legs.
Wow, that's an option. That's a visual.
Got that going for us. Back to our first story to demonstrate the point that even though it's summer, the stupidity continues. University of Texas Austin left-wingers have threatened to dox students who join conservative campus groups. So if you're an incoming freshman at UT Austin in the fall, see, they're already planning these little Antifa groups. If you're an incoming freshman at UT Austin and you sign up on your registration day for the Young Americans for Liberty, Charlie Kirk's organization, you join the Young Republicans, before you even have your first class, your private information will be doxed and sent around to all sorts of radical groups who can harass you for being a Nazi, evidently.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, doxing, that's the term they're using, DOX. It basically means that your personal information, your phone number, your address, any information that someone can find to be able to physically find you and have malicious intent against you is what they're doing. So this doxing is not just getting your phone number and saying, hey, how's it going? I hope you're enjoying your first week at UT Austin. They actually want to harass these people and possibly, we don't know, physically hurt them. We're not sure. But what's happening is specifically at that UT Austin is they have targeted the groups Young Conservatives of Texas, YCT, and Turning Point USA, which you had said, TPUSA. So this has been going on, and now that the fact that they are going to, even before those kids can really step on campus and get what's a college experience like, that's going to be their college experience, is being doxxed.
Yeah, and when you think about it, I've got to make it clear that this is not sponsored by the University of Texas, right? That these are not necessarily even University of Texas students. These are radical left-wing groups like Antifa who are behind this. And even though the university did come out with its typical tepid statement, Katie will read it to you in a moment, its typical tepid statement about how we don't support this, the fact is imagine, Katie, for 1 second, if this was a right-wing neo-Nazi group that was doxing potential UT Austin students if they signed up for the transgender club or the LGBTQ alliance, this would be a statewide, this would be a global attack. to root out these people, to create safe spaces on campus for the potentially doxed kids. We would have a huge campus conversation about that. There would be extra police and security around on those orientation days. This would be a really big deal. And the fact that one stupid little tepid statement from the administration tells you where their sympathies lie. They don't lie with incoming conservative kids at the University of Texas, Austin.
And that tepid statement is, students should never be targeted or face harassment for their affiliations, political beliefs, or any other reason. The anonymous group behind this doxing is not affiliated with the university. They wanted to distance themselves basically as far as possible. Yeah, is not a registered student group and should not present itself in that way. And then they updated their statement because maybe they thought, oh, whoops, maybe I didn't say enough. They said the university has reached out to the Texas Attorney General's office for guidance on the scope of legal remedies that may be available to protect our students, faculty, and staff from these outside threats. And it's kind of interesting to me because he used to be the Texas Attorney General, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Back in the day.
You know, the other thing about this is that not to be too cynical about them, but we want to protect kids from being harassed for their opinions and their worldviews. Why don't you apply that to your teaching faculty? Why, it's one thing that these kids are going to be doxxed by Antifa groups that aren't part of the university, but how much worse is it going to be for most of these kids when they're sitting in their English professor's freshman writing class and they dare to raise their hand and suggest that they'd like to vote for Donald Trump? What's going to happen to these kids in their sociological classes, their social science classes, when they try to defend pro-life positions? You think that doxing by some hippies in black masks is bad? Wait till what the professors do to them. Where's the statement that says, we'll protect you as much in the classroom as we're going to pretend to protect you out of it?
Well, and when you think about this, again, school doesn't start until, August for them, maybe early September or something like that.
August.
But the simple fact that these we don't know if they're kids or adults or whatnot, can tweet out and be like, yeah, we're going to dox them, we're threatening them now, and it's June, and nothing, it just seems so bizarre. Like, they have free reign. They can just put it out there and it doesn't matter, like you were saying before.
Yeah, you reiterated.
The other point, to wrap my head around that.
It's unbelievable that we are being so hypersensitized by the left to microaggressions.
Yes,
right on these leftist campuses. If as a white kid, you go up and ask somebody, an African American, "Oh, I like your hair today," you say, right? That's a microaggression.
How dare
you? That's deeply ingrained racism that's manifested itself. And yet here you have actual Nazi thugs, fascists pretending to be anti-fascists, who are literally threatening serious harm because of 17-year-olds who show up on campus with a political position that differs from them. And where is the national outrage? Where is the Texas outrage? Where is the reform outrage? Other than, again, a mandatory and, in my mind, altogether incomplete statement from the University of Texas about this. This is not the kind of thing that would happen if the shoe was on the other foot.
Exactly, it wasn't. All right, well, let's think about something that used to be one of my favorite activities during the summertime. It was the summertime reading programs, because my mom's a librarian, so of course I spent a lot of hours in a library, especially during the summer.
That explains your Wisconsin pale anemia.
It is.
You were in the library all summer long.
With all of my old books, there I was. You could find me just sitting there reading for hours. Well, summertime reading programs and activities at the library would put out used to be a lot of fun. Plus, it was air conditioned in there, so it was kind of nice. Anyway, the American Library Association, so they are the grand association for all the libraries, their website has basically found a way to not be at all for books, but be, again, for the left agenda. So we actually have the group, the ALA, is kind of colluding now with librarians, trying to sneak LGBT info to our kids. And they're doing this because they actually scrubbed an author's name from an article that they had put out on their website, in which a Maryland librarian described different ways that children's librarians, especially if you're in like the small rural towns, they can sneak this LGBT content and activities into their libraries. And now we don't know for sure who wrote it, although they suspect who they knew it. But this author, who we don't know, starts this article. Do you work for a library in a small, rural, conservative community? Are you a frontline staff member there with no managerial or administrative authority? Do you wish you could do more to make your library more inclusive to LGBTQIA+ community, but meet with resistance? And you know this article is going to be good. So she gives then a tips and tricks to being a secret librarian operative. These are her words. I'm assuming it's a female. Maybe I'm not allowed to do that. But she says a secret librarian operative. Number 1, don't give up. This is the most important lesson I can impart upon you. For instance, when you ask, can I do a GLBT book month display in June? And your supervisor says, no. Or think of the children. or customers will complain, or why. So if your supervisor says any of these things, no, think of the children, customers will complain, why. There are no gay people here in our town. That's another one that supposedly your supervisor would say. Anyways, she goes on to say, you could easily be very discouraged and angry and confused. Don't they know every Thursday is gay night at the town pub? But don't stop asking. Ask next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. One year they might say yes.
Yeah, in rural Elmo, Nebraska, right? As the cowboy studs all hit the trail from shucking corn, right? It's gay night every Thursday at the local Elmo Bar and Grill. This should convince you. I mean, what you said, Katie, at the very opening of your statement is exactly right. The idea that librarians are about books anymore is not true. Librarians have become woke social justice warriors. Look at, when you see the word librarian, I'm talking about any librarian that's been trained in the last 20 years. Librarians
not my mother,
now,
then.
not your mother. Was your mother trained in the last 20 years?
She was not. She finished up just before that.
Then my point still holds. Look at any librarian trained in the last 20 years, and you will find an antipathy to books. They don't like books. They like media. They don't like books. They don't like the idea that their job is to be custodians of the great writings of the past. That's passé, because so many. We had did a story a couple weeks ago about how Librarian Group was complaining that libraries themselves promoted white privilege, because so many of the books were written by white people, and so many of the books were written by white men down through the last 2,000 years, that libraries had become places of oppression and tyranny. The modern librarian does not consider herself a custodian of knowledge, does not consider herself a repository, a preservationist of the great wisdom of the past. She is a social justice warrior that will keep certain books away from you and force certain books on you, who will invite all sorts of sociological stuff into the library, right? From drag queen shows to condom displays to anything that has anything to do with anything else aside what the typical role of the library is.
And that's what the next points, and I'll just summarize those ones, that this specific librarian is encouraging. It's one of her tips and tricks is to sneakily fit stuff into your current programs. And she says, so you're not doing drag queen story time yet, but you're probably doing regular old story time, right? So she says, try to sneak inclusive messages into your current programs. And here's her example. If you're reading a book about a mama bear and a papa bear, maybe when you read it, you just change it to be about two papa bears. So I guess now the Bernstein Bears, now we have to be two papa bears instead of mama bear and papa bear.
Yeah, and the thing is that notice what she's willing to do. She is willing, she calls traditional reading hours. The idea that you would show up at a library and read one day about elephants, or the next day about World War II, or the next day about a racehorse, or the next day about 1,000 things, diverse things. That now is boring old story time.
Regular.
Story time is only interesting if you are jamming sexuality issues into them. So let's go ahead and rewrite books. So when you read the great soliloquy from Romeo and Juliet, Romeo and Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo, you turn Juliet into Remo, right? Remo and Romeo, right? And instead of a balcony, they're in the high school football locker room in nothing but jock straps. And the whole Shakespearean language goes back and forth because you have covertly worked into a classic work of literature something that doesn't belong there. This is worse than just ignoring books. This is worse than just trying to disobey what your employers want and to betray the constituents who visit your library. This is the willingness on the part of these lunatic social justice warriors to rewrite literature to conform to their politics, all on your public dime.
Yeah, and that's how you get what we see happening across the nation, especially this month with it being Pride Month. And the advice that this woman is putting out is where these drag queen story hours come from. And I want to give a shout out to activist mommy Elizabeth Johnston. She's been fighting back against this on Facebook and encouraging everyone she knows, all of her followers, to call their local library, see if there is a drag show scheduled in their library this summer. And let me tell you, pretty much all the libraries I've seen have at least one scheduled, and encourage that local library to not go on with it. And it's helped a lot. A lot of them have been canceled because they've gotten inundated with so many calls. Because remember, these are small local libraries, so they have maybe one or two people on staff at a time. So if you call with just sharing your information and your story about why they shouldn't have these drag queen story hours, it's effective. And this actually was quite effective now of a story that came out of Washington, of all places. at the Renton Library. It's part of the King County Library System, and there were some moms who were at the event that they put on, and they told it exactly like it actually is happening with these drag queen story hours. The event that they had in Washington is described as a pride celebration designed by teens for teens, and the most rainbow-filled fun you can imagine. It includes activities like open mic and karaoke. Other activities listed are presentations on safer sex, a drag show, an advice panel, and a free binder raffle. And it's supposed to be, according to the event page, suitable for tweens and teens, so ages 10 to 19. Now, if you read that as a description, you may think, oh, you may actually overlook that the fact they said drag show, but you may not think, oh, it's that bad. But these moms went and undercovered actually what happened. We actually have some video of it. And what you see in that video actually happened after the fact. So it was after hours. This event went on until about 5 o'clock at night. And then the library actually told all the adults, unless they actually had their teenagers were in the room, having the youth attend the program, that they had to leave the room and go out in the waiting area because this was a teen-only portion. So what you saw was a teen-only portion. And so this is where the whole story kind of unravels and gets really interesting, is because the PR specialist for the library said that there were 2 women in the room who refused to leave because it's their tax dollars going to this teen-only event. And so these women, one of them is Lynn Meager. She said she would not leave. And so they were escorted out of the library because they called the police on them. And they wanted the women to leave because the police would ensure that the teens had a safe and welcoming space to finish their program.
Yeah, and the trannies who reacted to the moms and dads being carried out, the moms were actually walking into the bathrooms to sort of see, right, if the bathrooms were occupied by people of opposite sexes and genders, that kind of stuff. The actual the trannies actually called the moms perverts. The moms were perverts. Did you see what's happening? Right? Now, to be a responsible mom who wants to be there when her tween is being indoctrinated at a public library paid for by her tax dollars, wants to be part of this, wants to see what's going on, wants to monitor what her kid is learning, the trannies call her a perv. She is literally called a pervert for wanting to look after her kids.
And then it gets even more interesting because what happened is, we were just talking about doxing in the first story. Well, Meager said that her and this other woman were later surrounded by 4 men who threatened, filmed, blew whistles at us, and told us our pictures and license plates were going on Twitter.
More doxing.
More doxing. We had to call 911 in order to get to our cars safely. So Antifa, they said it was Antifa is the one who put out the call for this, doxed the 2 women on Twitter, and they actually said, "Thanks, comrade." And then Jamie Johnson, who's one of the people who posted it, is his, we're not sure, self-written description on Twitter is that she is a transgender activist and sex industry worker who has been an occasional jail inmate. So sounds like a real winner. And this ties...
That's who you want around 10-year-olds.
I know. And this really ties into what's happening now to Elizabeth Johnston. I mean, just for her calling out these drag story hours, she's being doxxed. She's being threatened, stalked. They want to find her. They have it on Twitter. They want to find her husband's work address, her own phone number, and they are basically hunting anyone who speaks out against their drag shows.
10 years ago, you would have been justified to call men dressing as women and cavorting in front of little children perverted. Now, to protest that on a public facility, a library, is considered perverted. Look, here's a piece of insight, I think, and you tell me. I don't think I've heard anybody approach this story from this angle, these drag shows. If what you say you want to do is to acclimate kids to transgender people and to acclimate kids to homosexuality, why wouldn't you bring in a local business owner who's gay and have him talk to the kids about what it means? Why wouldn't you have a responsible working adult transgender person show up, or a couple of them show up in normal business clothes and express to children what it means to be transgendered? If what you want is to get kids to understand that, why are you bringing in men flamboyantly dressed as women to cavort and to sexually innuendoize your kids? What does that have to do with the actual experience of transgender people? Well, and you're also you're pointing a picture here, right? That to be gay or to be transgender is to be garishly made up as to wear garish clothes, to strut and prance around, to engage in highly suggestive sexual, most transgender people and most gay people, the vast majority of them don't do that. Why are you using transvestites to make this point? And one final thing. Where's the gender equity from these so-called social justice warriors? Where are the women dressed definitively like men? Where are the females who are dressed with the buzz cut haircut, all right, the tie, the button-down shirt, the three-piece suit? Why does this only cut one way? If what you say you're trying to do is promote equity, why are you giving them these one-sided transsexuals, this one-sided group of cross-dressers? Why do they represent everything you see as gay and transgender? And doesn't that beg one final question? If the American Library Association actually sees this glaring, garish caricature of what it means to be gay and transsexual, how come they're not being called for stereotyping, for generalizing, for bigoted exploitation of a group who is much broader than this? Why are these questions never being asked anywhere? Well, you heard them here, I think, first on the Dr. Duke Show. These are the questions we should be using to counter what the librarians think they need to do to our kids.
All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about a Catholic school that is now allowing boys to wear skirts. So that should be an interesting conversation. First, I want to remind you to keep telling people about the Dr. Duke Show. Make sure you're liking, commenting, and sharing each episode on whatever platform you prefer. It absolutely helps our growth. In fact, last week our viewership doubled thanks to all of your help. So thank you. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and of course, the great Parler. So follow Freedom Project, Duke Pesta, and me, Katie Petrick. And don't forget to subscribe to the audio podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and everywhere else. And finally, subscribe to our free Friday e-blast. If the social media is not your thing, visit freedomproject.com/subscribe to sign up and receive just one email every Friday with all of the stories we cover each and every week. It's absolutely free. Okay, moving on to a Catholic school in Ireland that's going to allow the boys now to wear their skirts. It's happening at St. Bridget's National School in Greystones, which is just outside of Dublin, Ireland. And they're going to allow the girls to wear pants and the boys to wear skirts starting in September. And also, of course, they are going to have some gender-neutral bathrooms. The principal, Marie Costello, said it was the student council's idea. Mind you, this is an elementary school. Why they have a student council? I don't know.
If 8-year-olds demanded donuts for a snack every day, would we immediately say, well, the 8-year-old elementary school council wanted them?
The council has spoken.
I'm pretty sure they'd be overruled.
Yes. The principal also claimed the school council members researched the opinions of their fellow pupils with their crayons and paper out on the playground. I'm sure they were taking the opinions. And they found that the school management supported the change, a.k.a. the principal. I'm assuming that's what she means. Yeah. Right. Anyway, so Costello said the school has students questioning their sexual identity.
Elementary school kids.
At an earlier age. Questioning Catholic doctrine is more like what I'm seeing they're doing. But we have to remember that Ireland is so progressive now. They had legalized gay marriage in 2015 and then abortion in 2018. So this is just par for the course.
And this is a Catholic school.
This Catholic school.
This is
Catholic
school,
Catholic.
Right? And so it goes to show you, Mom and Dad, that you can't trust any of these schools. And the idea, and how disserving and wicked this is, that the 7-year-olds, our elementary school student council wanted this, they promoted this, they researched this. Utter and complete BS. This was 100% suggested and coerced the kids into doing this. And I got to throw this out there as well, too. We keep hearing how traditional gender norms are bad. So when boys are made to wear pants and girls are made to wear skirts, that's bad. And now what are you doing? You're going to demonstrate your progressivism by having boys wear skirts. How do we demonstrate men who protest their gender put them in skirts? How is that not the same kind of sexism? Mm-hmm. How is not exactly the same kind of pigeonholing and stereotyping? You're using stereotypes to fight stereotypes. You're reinforcing the stereotypes by simply flipping them. You're not deconstructing anything. It's the same thing we said a moment ago with these transvestites. I mean, why do we believe, right, that the best way to teach little kids about gender confusion is to put otherwise put male bodies into female clothing and pretend like this is some kind of a revolution, given that the vast majority of gays or transgenders don't behave that way?
Well, according to Costello, she wants the children to have a happy experience in school. And if that means girls wearing trousers or boys wearing skirts, so be it. The most important thing is that children should feel comfortable and happy over how they are dressed.
Yep, and the kids who don't want to wear clothes at all, because as our gay friend told us, that's little kids know nakedness, why make them wear clothing at all, right? And if people want to wear, if these elementary school kids felt comfortable wearing pro-MAGA t-shirts, think they'd allow that happiness to
it's
reign?
Ireland, but yes.
You get my point, though, right? Or if they wore Brexit, right? If they wore Brexit t-shirts, you think that particular happiness would be allowed?
Of course.
My God, this is nothing more than radical social engineering at a Catholic school.
And the thing is, this school is actually publicly funded, but it's under the ultimate authority of Dublin Archbishop Dermot Martin, who, according to a Catholic author, Anthony Murphy, has basically given himself over to the left liberal leanings. Murphy said, "We would not let the Nazis educate our children. We would not let Stalin educate our children. But we have an even worse group of people polluting the minds of our children and turning them against their history, ancestors, and their family." Mic drop.
Way to go, Anthony Murphy. And you makes you wonder what other left-leaning tendencies this so-called bishop has with regards to little children. I'd like to see the Catholic Church's dossier on this guy.
Yeah, well, I'm not holding my breath to look at that. All right, so we're going to go over to Scotland, where a 17-year-old boy was actually kicked out of class because, of course, he dare say that there are only two genders. What a bigot. He has now been suspended for 3 weeks because he challenged his teacher, stating, okay, what we're talking about, but there are only two genders. And the teacher allegedly told the class that a website was, quote, old-fashioned for having only two gender options. And that's when the teen spoke up in the class to be like, excuse me, biologically speaking, there are only two genders, male and female. Anything else is a personal identification. So the kid gets kicked out of class. And then the teacher and the student have a private conversation in the classroom after the fact, and the boy secretly taped it. And so this video has gone viral, and you can see a little bit of a clip here.
Yeah, how was what I was saying?
Because I was saying that what's wrong with the website is that there are more than one gender in this country.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion, and that is an opinion which is acceptable in the school. I'm afraid yours, which you're saying that there's no such thing as anyone other than male or female, is not inclusive.
Scientifically, there are just two genders, depending on what
I get it.
gender
But you're choosing to make an issue of this, because I said, are you really going to hear? That was your opportunity to keep quiet.
You made the issue with it on the website. You said, this website doesn't have more than two genders.
Murray, you were clearly given an opportunity not to pursue it. You chose to do so.
Yeah, because I think it's
You
silly.
chose to do so. Yes, that's the key question. You chose to do so.
I think it's silly to have anything other than two genders. So
Okay.
Anything else is a
Could you
personal
please
opinion.
keep that opinion to your own house? Thank you.
In the words of my Scottish friends, I can't bet it. This doolally bastard teacher, right, who's telling these kids that it's old-fashioned to believe in male and female. It is old-fashioned now. The biological, scientific, and 1,000-year history of world culture now is old-fashioned, right?
Yes.
Doolally bastard, right?
I don't know how about that Scottish accent.
That's a good one, eh?
Was that a good accent? People let us know.
As you're sitting over your haggis, mate, let us know if the Scottish accent is anywhere near acceptable.
See, now you're going to be wearing your skirt. Put your little kilt on.
If you were a woman, I'd have called him a dozy cow.
Okay. Well, the teacher also accused the teen of actually choosing to make an issue of this. An issue.
So, right. Go ahead.
And he had the opportunity to keep quiet. Oh, did he now?
Your opinion's welcome, but it's not inclusive, so it's not welcome. That you had an opportunity to say what you felt, but when you did, I didn't like it, so you should have just shut up. How's that for a Scotch corner?
That was a very American response. That
Very
sounded
American.
very almost New York.
This is grade A bullying. Where's William Wallace when we need him?
Just paint your face and just go.
Where is William? And already in a skirt.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You already got your kilt on.
There you go.
All right. Well, I hope that kid doesn't go to college because he'll get more of this type of action.
Well, he's the kind of kid we need in college.
I know, but if he comes over to America, he's going to regret it. Tell me about the 2/3 of American students, employees now, I guess, who were students and are basically regretting what they did.
Yeah, our final story today is one that is utterly predictable and terribly depressing. So we now have a new survey out. Two-thirds of people with jobs.
What's that math on that one? What's that mean?
66%. Yeah.
66.67.
All right. Two-thirds of employed graduates of college.
Wait a minute, 2/3 got employed? I'm impressed.
2/3 of employed. My point about emphasizing that number again and again is where the vast majority of the unemployed are.
Yeah,
if 2/3 of college graduates with jobs regret going to college and majoring in what they did, I'm willing to bet that probably, 90% of the unemployed who went to college and have all that student loan debt are regretting it. That's when you combine those two numbers, I mean, it's got to be like 80% of people who went to college, the employed and certainly the unemployed, regret either going to college or their choice of majors. 2/3 of employees report having regrets when it comes to their advanced degrees, according to PayScale, a survey of 248,000. That's a good survey
number.
Sample. Yes, it is. PayScale surveyed 248,000 respondents this past spring, and the information was released this week. Student loan debt, which has ballooned to nearly 1.6 trillion with a T, if you want to wrap your mind around that. That student loan debt has ballooned to 1.6 trillion nationwide, and it was the number one regret among workers with college degrees.
Say it ain't so. Just say it ain't so. And, we're okay because we just heard also Bernie's going to get rid of all that debt, so pish posh, we'll be fine. But the fact that we have, it's about 70% of college students this year alone will have student debt. 70%. And then 2/3 of employees regret that. There's numbers that just kind of align nicely with that. And the fact that we have $33,000 as an average of what the loan, the debt is this year per student, it's astronomical. No wonder we're at $1.6 trillion.
Yeah, and 33,000 is actually a fairly moderate number.
It's an average.
It's an average.
If you will.
And so
The
you've got significant number of people who literally owe the federal government and student loans
hundreds of thousands.
a house, right? They owe them a house. And I'm not surprised by that at all. And when you look at who the most satisfied were, are we surprised by this?
No.
Those students with jobs, those employed students, ex-students who are employed, the most satisfied with their majors are those who majored in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, right? Because STEM pays well and STEM is purpose-driven. I think those are the two things, right? Those are the ones who are typically more likely to enjoy higher salaries, reported more satisfaction with their college degrees. About 42, but this is how bad it is. Only 42% of engineering grads, which means 58% did have regrets. Only 42% of engineering grads and 35% of computer science grads said they had no regrets. So 35% of computer people, 65% still had regrets of going to college at all. Because I guarantee you, a huge aspect of what they had to study in college had nothing to do with computer science and was completely hacked and overridden by the social justice BS again.
Well, it makes you wonder, too, especially with the science, technology, engineering, math majors, because of the way we teach math now, these kids come in, because we're pushing STEM. We're pushing STEM. Everyone should be STEM, like it's everywhere. And yet we're not actually taking serious what math is supposed to be.
STEM is watered down.
So then obviously when they get out, I was a math major and I learned so much, and they actually go to that job, they're like they know nothing. They realize it's the bleep moment when they're like, I actually know nothing.
That's right. And they have to be retrained.
Yes.
If they have any kind of a math or science sensibility, there's a huge gap between what they should have learned in college and what is required for them to do their work. And so let that sink in. These are the best. 42% of engineering grads and only 35% of computer science grads were happy with the degrees they've got. Are we surprised to learn that the biggest regrets are humanities majors? And I can tell you, and I have told you as a humanities professor, let me repeat this. Humanities study done right, the study of the human condition, the study of diverse opinions, the study of what it means to be human through art or philosophy or through language, that is there may be no more important thing than that. Because the kid who goes on and becomes a doctor or a lawyer or a scientist still has to deal with human beings, still has to go home to their family every night and deal with the things that make life worth living, things that aren't just mechanical. Nevertheless, the humanities have been so utterly co-opted by social justice warriors that they are now worse than meaningless. You're not just not giving kids a proper education in history and art and philosophy. You are countering that by giving them what I consider a net negative education in radical social justice politics. Is it any wonder that the humanities kids are neither employable nor satisfied with what the universities gave them for tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars of debt.
And the specific number is 75%. 3 out of every 4 humanities majors said they regretted their college
Employed
education.
ones.
Yes, well, they went, I'm guessing this 248,000, they went to, Starbucks
Sure.
or various coffee shops. They went to restaurants. They went,
Mom's basements.
Does mom pay them like an allowance? Does allowance count as being employed?
know.
Maybe. But 73% of the people who studied social sciences, which is what I've studied, physical and life sciences and art said the same. And I probably would be right there with them, being one of those 3 or 4, but I'd say I'm one of 4 because now here I am. If I wouldn't have done what I did, I wouldn't be where I am. So there you go.
Those are huge numbers.
Those are absolutely
of the
atrociously huge
actual
numbers.
humanities majors who have
3 out
jobs.
of every 4, yeah, and those are the ones.
75 see their college experience and their major as utterly worthless to what they're doing now. Yeah. And so when, again, you factor in the huge number of humanities majors without jobs, whose I would imagine satisfaction levels are really, really low, we're talking, 80, 85, 90% of humanities grads who, if they had to do it over, would do it differently?
Well, and it points to more of a time thing, too, because of how they broke this down by the generations. It's been the education system in America has been broken for a long, long time, but it's just rapidly gotten worse in recent years. When you take a look and they interviewed older Americans, were more likely to report that they were actually satisfied by the education they received. With baby boomers, 50% said they had no college regrets. So at least you're over half.
Well, but the good news about that and the bad news about that is it's baby boomers who destroyed the colleges and the universities, right?
This is
baby
true.
boomers got the last really good education
And
here
then just-
post-World War II before it all went to crap by all this progressive nonsense.
I'm very excited about this. It's time for some real education, and today we're taking a look at our national and award-winning series, The Presidential Minute, this time featuring our nation's second president, my personal favorite founder, Mr. John Adams. I even wrote my master's thesis on him because he's a great guy. He was one of the best founders. I could go on and on, but let's just take 90 seconds right now to learn a little history about my man, John Adams.
Let me tell you a little story about a man named John Adams. Born in Massachusetts on October 30th, 1735, he would become one of the nation's first constitutional lawyers. Considered one of the most influential founding fathers, his first stint in politics was as a delegate in the Continental Congress during the Revolutionary War. At 28, he married Abigail Smith and together raised 6 children, including John Quincy, who would become the nation's 6th president. Through his years, he helped draft the Declaration of Independence and wrote the Massachusetts state constitution. John was the first to nominate George Washington as commander-in-chief during the Revolutionary War and John Marshall as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In 1789, he ran alongside George Washington, becoming America's first vice president. 8 years later, he was elected as the nation's second president. In 1800, he lost his re-election to Thomas Jefferson and became one of 4 presidents in history not to attend his successor's inauguration. John Adams died on July 4th, 1826, at the age of 90. Ironically, that day, Thomas Jefferson also passed, all while America celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And there you go, a little story about a man named John.
As my co-mate, Duke the dog from the Bush's Baked Beans commercial said, that was some beautiful bean footage.
Welcome to Extra Credit, brought to you this week by Happy Birthday, George Orwell. Sorry we did not heed your advice from your novels, specifically 1984. And we begin with a Hate Week-style messaging from Yolian Agbu, the recently elected president of the Student Government Association at the University of North Texas. She was so brave, so woke, when she decided to cover the U.S. flag in the Student Government office with the Black Lives Matter flag. And then, being so brave and so woke, she put her fist in the air like she just didn't care, as if she were a member of the Spies in Youth League.
The perfect metaphor for American college kids is the effacement of the American flag in favor of the Black Lives Matter flag.
Just like members of the Junior Anti-Sex League, administrators at UW-Madison are forcing down a male anatomy-shaped sculpture as part of a renovation project. The 50-foot nails-tails obelisk is made of footballs and was made to honor sculptor Donald Lipsky's football-playing roommate Eric Nails Nathan. But the stones will be removed, and it is unknown if the obelisk will ever stand erect again.
Only in Madison, Wisconsin can a university turn a football monument into a great big phallic symbol.
Let's talk about Big Brother in the form of physics professor Tom Bensky, who created an app that tracks your location by accessing your cell phone GPS and now is being used as the method of taking attendance in his Cal Poly State classroom. The You Here app sets up a geofence around the classroom and only allows you to check in from within the fence. Big Brother Bensky says you can't opt out of using it if you're in his classes, in which attendance counts for 10% of your grade, and up to 8,000 students have checked into classes every day across the country using the app.
Big Brother now has tenure. Happy birthday, George Orwell.
Thought police activity was conducted by media professor Jay Rosenstein, who won a Social Justice Award for outstanding faculty staff at the University of Illinois for his activism of secretly filming the president of the Honor the Chief Society while the man changed into a mascot costume in a bathroom during a basketball game. Rosenstein was making a documentary about the use of Native American school mascots, specifically at the U of I. Though Rosenstein was arrested for unauthorized videotaping of a former student, on campus he was given an award and refused to apologize, claiming it was his journalistic duty to film in the bathroom.
Getting an award for using a bathroom toilet cam sounds exactly right for a college campus.
And that's your extra credit for the week. Now, if you have any comments for these stories or you want to suggest something, please head over to freedomproject.com/askduke. And then smash that like button and share the episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the Dr. Duke Show audio podcast on iTunes and leave us the precious 5-star review and a few nice comments.
And that does it for us this week on the Dr. Duke Show. If you like what you've heard, please share the video and audio podcast with your friends, and I'm sure you have a lot because you like us. We're off for the 4th of July, so have a really wonderful Independence Day, and take a moment to reflect on the great blessings that this country has provided, in spite of what idiots are doing to education. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke, and she's Katie. We'll see you next time.